The way you look at things, the things you look at change.
What exists, reality itself, is gorgeous. It is the plenum, the fullness of total joy. The universe is a celebration. It's a fireworks show to celebrate that existence is. Wowee.
For those of us seeking a life of meaning and purpose, capturing fulfillment in every moment of now, seeking the truths of our reality so we can live this life to its fullest. This is the Live This Life podcast. I'm your host, Heath Cummings.
And I'm your co-host for the day, Alexis McQuillan. We're here to inspire you to ask yourself the question every single day. Are you living or are you killing time?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. And I finally have my awesome co-host back with me. Alexis, what's been going on? I feel like it has literally been forever.
It has been forever. What the heck, man?
Busy summer.
No, I just think that you're just, working with other people, and I'm a little disappointed.
I have not. I have been working on myself. Actually, the episode that we just put out was like me detailing that this whole summer has been literally nothing but me just kind of diving into some stuff I was moving through with changes in family and how I got to approach life a little bit, and coming to some realizations that the thing that I kind of had that was my ultimate happiness was the time with the family and stuff. Kids getting older and hanging out with parents isn't as cool. So it's like we had to reconfigure it all. And it was like one of those, I think it took a turning point in life where I had to like dive in and sink into it like really deep. And there's that go-getter part of me that I had to silence a little bit and just be like, dude, just focus on this one a little bit, and then you can get back on the highway and put the pedal down. So what have you been up to?
Which is so hard for you.
It was. What was your summer like?
Oh, it was so fun. Well, I just got back from New Mexico. My boyfriend's grandma just turned 90, so we all just came in from all over the states and we surprised her for her birthday. It was so sweet, and I was expecting New Mexico to be super lame. We went to Albuquerque. It's actually beautiful.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. Yeah, so it was really nice. What else have I been doing? I feel like I went somewhere else too. Oh my gosh. Okay, so my birthday is August 19th. For my 32nd birthday, I was supposed to go to Nashville with my boyfriend, Chase. I check in the night before, I buy our seats, I buy our bags, because we went through Frontier. And we showed up to the airport, and I'm like, what's weird? Like, I never got our boarding passes. And he's like, that's weird. But I was like, well, I have the confirmation number. We can just go up to the ticket, booth or whatever, and get our boarding passes. We show up. The lady basically is like, sorry, we have a new policy that if you don't show up 60 minutes prior with your boarding pass, you're not allowed to get on the flight.
No way.
Fuck Frontier. I'm saying it now.
Oh my God.
They turned us away, and I was like, I checked in. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, you didn't. Doesn't show that you checked in. Look at my voice. I'm getting ramped up. I'm riled up. I'm there again.
I'm ready to, oh my God. I couldn't imagine planning a whole trip and wow.
And she basically just said to us, don't even try to, get a refund. You probably won't get it.
Wow.
So we waited for 3 hours. This chick, the employees just kept pushing us off because I was like, I'll wait for your manager. I'll talk to them. We finally, after 3 hours of fuming anger, get to talk to the manager. I have to bicker back and forth with her. She finally gives us a credit, but the way their flights work, I have to sneeze. I think I'm good. The way that their flights work, we weren't able to go to Nashville until the following Sunday, only Fridays and Sundays. So we're like, well, we can't go to Nashville. So we're like, let's go towards the hurricane in California. So yeah, we went there and it was nice, but
where in California?
Dana Point.
Where's that near?
Yeah, I forget your East Coast.
Yeah.
San Diego.
Oh, okay, cool.
You'll know San Diego. Yeah. So it was cool, but it wasn't. I mean, I'm still disappointed that happened. So I'm never, ever, ever going on Frontier again.
Good to know. Good to know. I haven't flown in so long. Like everywhere we go is usually like we go by vehicle and just kind of travel all the way around New England. There's so much stuff out here to do, but you know,
That's true.
that is changing in the next few years. That's part of some of the stuff that we kind of moved through this summer and was kind of like, okay, we need to sort of spread our wings a little bit and start getting out and about. So we've got some places we're going to travel to, and you know, when we're going to kind of like reserve our ability instead of like spending everything we've got over a series of weeks during the summer, like kind of reserve it toward if something pops up, we can say, okay, let's go to that. Let's go, you know, do whatever. So
I want to visit where you guys are because it sounds really cool. It
is so much fun. I gotta admit, like, as much as I don't like the politics out here in Massachusetts and some of the way the place is run, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, you just going to Cape Cod is like no other ocean vacation type place. It's just, there's so much. Yeah. It is some of the most gorgeous beaches in the world too. So it's like people come from all over the place, this tiny little peninsula, and it's amazing.
I mean, it is pretty famous.
It is. God. Yeah. And I can see why so many people go out there. I mean, we've been going there for 20 years almost. So it's, you know, it's in our state, so we just kind of take it for granted. But talking to people that are out there, it's like, it's really hard to want to go anywhere else. But I love the Pacific Northwest. Like, I want to go back out there and see the mountains, and, you know, I want to like go in like the Rockies and just go where there's literally nobody. Like, you have no chance of bumping into somebody on like a hiking trail or something. Yeah.
I think about that probably twice a month.
Yeah.
Going off the grid, being in nature with absolutely, no way of bumping into anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so amazing.
I'm actually doing that as soon as we're done and I turn the microphone off. Like, we have this mountain behind us that's just, you know, it's huge. There's nobody back. It's so steep in certain spots. I can guarantee I'll go out there and not see anybody, but my plan is to shut this off. It's a gorgeous day out. So I'm going to get lost in the woods.
I'm going to go be a mountain man.
I am, because these people have been pissing me off lately, and that's kind of why. That's a good. It's a really good segue into what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about Enneagrams, and for those of you who don't know what that is, you're going to totally you're going to love diving into this stuff, because it's going to help you learn a lot about yourself, and it will also in turn give you a bit of insight to what other people might be bringing to the table in your interactions with them. But it's also, you know, in the process, it's not just interaction, it's your self-awareness when you react to certain things in life and stuff. And once Alexis, because this is her wheelhouse, like this is like her expertise. So if you guys are listening to this episode and you want to learn more about it, I will put, you know, obviously, you know, so many different ways to get a hold of Alexis, but I'm going to put links to all sorts of stuff in the show notes, and this is her jam. So if you want to dive into this and learn a lot more about Enneagrams and yourself in the process, Alexis is the one to dive into, to dive into this for you. But tell us what it's about, and like, how did you even get interested in like becoming, I wouldn't say an expert. I mean, you know a lot about this and has taught me a lot about myself. Like, what made you get into this whole thing?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I mean, I was doing some coaching with this woman, and she was an Enneagram coach, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but let's do this. And so when she I probably did say that to her, let's do this. Actually, when she was like, how many sessions do you want to do? I was like, let's do this twice a week. Let's get to the point. Like, I want to resolve some of my inner issues. And she's like, okay, 7, which we'll get into. She's like, chill out. Let's just do once a week. But I guess that's very 7 of like, let's get to the point, solutions. So yeah, once I started learning about myself from this woman, I bought all the books, I did all the research online, and I was like, this is unbelievable. And this is something I feel like everybody needs to know about. I'm that passionate. I wrote out things because I don't want to mess up, because I want to be able to portray this in the way that like it's so meaningful. Oh my gosh. And literally, so when I first started getting into different personality typing systems and modalities, which I was in love with, this is the one personality typing system that I have shown other people, and they have also become obsessed with it because it is so deeply meaningful and different. So with that being said, Enneagram is a personality typing system made of 9 basic types. And it basically shows us the way in which we interpret the world. If you think about yourself as a little kid, you know, you're learning from your parents, your authorities, the people around you, your environment, society. You basically create this filter to be able to understand and cope with the world. And that's what I would call this filter is the 9 basic types. And it helps us understand the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave. But it goes even deeper than that, and it helps us understand the motivation behind our behavior. Mm-hmm. So, for example, what that means is like, let's say you and we show up in a room and we get angry about the same exact thing. To us, I need to like come up with an example. Let's say we walk into a room and it's a mess. And we're both like, this is a mess. We're both so angry and we're both in agreement that this is a mess. But the motivation behind why we're angry is completely different. Okay. I might feel trapped as a 7. You might feel out of control as an 8. And that's what I mean by the motivation behind behavior. So it gives us it just goes really deep into the psychology of like why we react and why we behave and why we think certain ways. And I don't know, I just love it. You can obviously see it on my freaking face. Yeah.
and now Alexis has stopped addressing me as Heath and just started calling me, okay, 8. That's 8.
True. That's true. Because everything you say, I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, he's an 8. He's an 8. My cousin, who's basically like my sister, she's typecasted me as she's totally into astrology. So she's typecast me as like literally the Virgo poster child, like total, everything's got to be organized and, withdrawn around people they don't know, but then just like explosive around people that they actually do know and stuff like that. But this goes even deeper. And when I wasn't huge into astrology, she brought this huge book over one time and I'm like sitting there and I got to that section. I'm like flipping through the stuff about Virgos and I've never really dove into it much. And I'm like reading this stuff and I'm like, somebody literally wrote this section about me and it's kind of effing creepy. Like looking through that, this was even weirder. Like so basically back up months ago, Alexis had me take the test that I'm going to link in the show notes. Go take it. It's free. It takes a while. But I'll even say that like the answers that you put on, like it'll kind of ask you the same questions, but in a different way over and over so that it doesn't just typecast you off of your answer of one question. It kind of throws different scenarios at you that are in a similar modality just so that it can kind of get like the average of how you answered that specific personality trait. I did it. And I think it was a 3, maybe. I think it was a 3 when I first did it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can take that test every time and get a 3 and I'm not.
Yeah. And then we dove into it. I think after we turn the microphone off, sometimes we sit and chat for a little bit, turn the microphone off and started to dive into it. And I think it might've been like an episode planning session where we were going to get this subject on and you and I started chatting and you were like, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, I think you're an 8. And then kind of dove more and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was just like literally typecast to the creepiness level again, where like Alexis is knowing things about the way that I react on stuff that she should not know. And somehow it's there. And that's what made me like really dive into this. And just a quick comparison of this to other things that people may have heard about as far as personality typecasting and how those interact with other people. The DISC model, which I'll put up a graphic of it right now. The DISC model is definitely different. Like the DISC, it's basically people who are dominating is the D, and then I think is intellectual. I'm going to totally butcher this unless I can find the different part of it. Anyways, I'll put it up there. But there's the DISC model will teach you how to interact with people, and that's its main purpose. And usually they use it in the workplace, and it gained a lot of popularity in probably the last 10 to 15 years. So that people who were like managers in a job, like human resources would bring this whole training, like somebody who's a specialist, bring it in and have a manager with all of their subordinates that they're in charge of take this thing, and they would all learn about, the different personality types and how they interact with each other. And if I'm a D and this person's an I, then I need to interact with them in certain ways. And it basically helps to try to eliminate employee to employee conflict, but then also helps a manager know how to basically interact with their staff. Number one, so they don't hate them, like everybody hates their boss. But number two, it's just for efficiency. And so that you can make sure that the person that you're you're in charge of a lot. You're in charge of their workflow, but you're also in charge of their well-being for a huge portion of their life. People spend so much time at work and it wraps up so much of their mentality. So to get the best out of them, you treat them the best by knowing how they interact. I guess that's how I would describe the disc training that I've been through. Enneagram is that on steroids. Like it's not just, it does help you with interactions with people. Mm-hmm. And that's a great part of it, but it also teaches you everything about yourself. So you realize your actions with people and your life circumstances, and sort of if something pops up, likely how you're going to respond, so that you can kind of, in a certain way, you want to be true to yourself and not condition yourself out of things that are your superpower, because these things will tell you about your superpower, but it's also going to tell you about your kryptonite. It's going to tell you really what your weaknesses are, that your knee-jerk reaction, sometimes it's there and it's existing, and you should be aware of it so you can soften it up a little bit, so that you don't have something that's going to be a roadblock to success with people or the circumstances in your life that tend to repeat and show themselves over and over until you learn the lesson. So did I do that justice?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Cool.
That was so good. Yeah, going off of like what you said about, understanding your reactions. I was reading something about, so I'm a 7. I think that I've made that clear. But I read something that I can make in my life. I have basically made people feel like they're boring or uninteresting, because as a 7, and we'll get into that, I'm constantly on to the next thing. I'm moving very fast. I'm a quick mind. And I also like jump from experience to experience. And so a lot of people in my life, and my sister even said this, which is really nice because it shows that I've had a lot of growth in the last few years. But we were in the pool and she's like, wow, she's like, you're like really calm and just collected and present. And I was like, thank you. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I don't want to make you feel bad, but like I used to feel like I wasn't like good enough, or like I was boring to hang out with, because you were just constantly like on the go. And I feel so bad like looking back, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I could totally see why people would feel that way. But that's why I love Enneagram so much, because it has helped me become calm and collected and present. And the reason that I was jumping from experience to experience is because I was trying to get away from something, which we'll get into. I'm trying to like do this like mystery thing, just dropping hints.
It's great though, because I think for most of us, we are a mystery to ourselves, and it's cool when there's so many different levels of self-awareness and self-discovery. You have to consciously start to, everybody uses that whole cliche awakening process. It makes it sound so mystical and, someday you're going to start floating off the friggin' ground or something. It's like, no,
I wish.
Hey, who knows? It could happen. The awakening process is awakening about so much stuff. It's awakening to how the world operates and the hidden portions of it. It's and a lot of that I feel like was basically social conditioning to dumb us down a lot. So we're just good, solid workers. We're, basically part of a, I don't want to dive too much into this. It's totally not the subject for today, but like, we're basically part of a slave system still that just serves the system all the time. And if you're more self-aware, you become more self-powerful. That therefore the powers that be are less influential on you. And when you start to awaken to everything within you, you become more self-aware. You stop tripping over your own self, because you know that you need to be more present. Just this example that you just gave us, those little things add to your power rather than take it away. So we're,
okay.
See, but that's honestly where I'm excited to learn more about this, to talk to everybody about it, but incorporate more of this into my life as well, because the more I've awakened to certain things about my life, how I react to things and what I've done, it causes me to stop having backslides, which obviously the backslides don't get you to your end point as fast as you'd like to. Everybody has the backslides, no matter if they're big or small. You'll always have them. But learning more about how you operate and how your brain operates, and this whole modality gets you there quicker, you stop having such big backslides to the point where you can almost try to eliminate them or see the potential of them coming at you because of the way that you interact and operate with the world. So
1000%. And also because I want to go into each type. But I do recommend, like, yeah, of course you can take the test at the end of this, if you'd like, but it is pretty inaccurate. So I'm going to give a link to you for people to tour the types. It's Narrative Enneagram. They have this amazing guide and you can tour the types. I specifically like people to do this so they can use their own self-awareness to understand which type they are. Because if you go by the test, I mean, like we said earlier, you got a 3 and I got a 3. We're not 3s. You're
Right.
an 8 and I'm a 7. That being said, I also want to thank you, Heath, because knowing how 8s are, this subject is pretty vulnerable, and
Yeah.
that's like very difficult for 8s.
Yeah.
So thanks, man.
I think you have to reach a certain level, like just like with self-awareness of the awakening process and all that kind of stuff. I think you have to reach a level in your life where you're sick of what you've been through, especially if you see recurring patterns. You're kind of like sick of yourself
Totally.
fucking up, you know, you're like, God damn it, why do I keep doing this stupid shit? I think
Yes.
you get
Or
to a
why?
certain point. Yeah. Like you want to rip open whatever it is that you've got so you can get to the inside and try and tinker around and fix it and
Love
sew
that.
it back up, you know? So, you know, I think maybe somebody who is an 8 who hasn't gone through that process is going to listen to some of this stuff and be like, it's all bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
probably.
need to sit and listen. You're the one we're talking to. You are it. So now,
That's so
I don't know where
funny.
else you want to go, but I definitely, whatever point is good. I want you to talk about, like you've said 7 a few times, you've said 8 a few times, but if
Yeah.
you want to dive into some of what the numbers mean, but you know, if you want to emphasize a 7 and emphasize an 8, because obviously we have one of
Yeah.
each one right here that we can talk about. But however you want it, however you want to steer this ship, this is all you.
Okay, let's just go through each type, but yeah, we can talk more about, 7 and 8 and if others come up. But so each type has, let me just say, Enneagram is actually pretty complex. I'm going over the basics, the very basics.
Yeah, this is like intro. This is 101 level.
This is 101. So each type, has its strengths, it has its weaknesses, it has a core fear, it has a core desire. There's tons of different messages within each even basic type. And a 1, these are the type of people that their core and biggest fear is to be incorrect, to be wrong, and to be bad. And so they have this horrible inner critic. Like we all have an inner critic, but a 1, their inner critic is like beyond. I know a 1, he calls it his Kraken. And they kind of like ones see things in black and white and so badly, they just want to do the right thing. They just want to be good. That's their desire. So that's the basic of type 1. Type 2s, these are the people that will put other people's needs before their own. And there's a couple different types that do that, but 2s really do that because their biggest fear is to be unloved or unwanted, undesired. And their core desire is to be loved and wanted. And so in doing so, they're going to put other people before themselves to receive love in return.
Mm-hmm.
They're very sweet types. I could go on and on.
That might be where I would like class. Just on the surface, I think that's like kind of where my wife would be. Like it's like definitely a typecast of who she, and some of the stuff that she's grown through. Like definitely a 2. She's going to be taking that test this weekend, so we'll find out.
I'm so excited to find out what she is. Oh my gosh. Okay, so type 3, these are like the achievers. They're the people that are just going on to the next thing, setting goals, and they're going to reach them. But they also have this core fear of being worthless. So in order to, be respected and seen as valuable, they're going to put themselves out there. They're going to reach these goals in order to show people like, hey, look what I can do. Mm-hmm. Look how valuable I am. The sad part about that, though, is like they think that they will receive, admiration or love in return by what they do and not who they are. Mm. And I just want to point that out because that's very 3. And then 4s, man, these guys are like super, super emotionally aware. But their core fear is being seen as insignificant or defective. And they really want, they desire like to be different and to have an identity. 4s are, like I said, they're so emotionally aware and like more than any of the other types. Sometimes they can even come off like masked because they're so afraid that if they show their inner world and show that richness of emotional intelligence, they'll scare people away. So this is like the emotional type is a 4. I hope I did you guys justice. I really hope I did you guys justice.
If not, they're really upset.
They're gonna be like, yeah. I hope I'm doing all of these justice. I was so nervous before we got on. Remember, I was like, I'm so nervous. I want to do good.
Yeah, but I mean, these are basic summaries because it goes so much deeper
so deep.
too. Like it's so deep. Like you could spend a half an hour on each one of these types. Like that's why 100%. Anybody who's interested in this, I was never really into this before, and man, I'm obsessed. But keep going.
Yes.
I got him.
Okay, I got him. Fives. These are the type of people that are, I mean, not all fives are quiet, but they are pretty quiet. Their energy is very important to them, their energy resources. Their core fear is to be seen as ignorant or incapable. So they're going to be out there sucking up all the knowledge they can get in order to understand the world, to be able to cope with the world. Their core desire is to be competent and knowledgeable. I really consider fives, like Chase, my boyfriend, he's a five. It's funny, like we can show up to a restaurant and he can be social, he can be a social butterfly, but when he's done, he's done. Like their energy, they get overwhelmed. Like it's so important. If you're with a five and they say they're done, you better walk away with them. Okay. Sixes. Sixes are so loyal. They they have their own, okay, any Enneagram people listening, they're gonna be like, I get it, because sixes are so difficult to understand and describe because they have these two different sides to them, and they confuse the shit out of me, I'm not gonna lie. But so their biggest fear is fear itself, being without guidance and security. They're the type of person that went constantly looking outside of themselves for information and guidance. So they're the ones that's like asking everybody, like, hey, is this the right decision to make? Is this the right thing to do? Like they're looking out, days in advance for any hazards or anything that could go wrong in order to stay safe. So they have trouble trusting themselves in their inner knowing.
Almost like they have to turn to people for approval a lot. Like they have to turn to them for like confirmation of things.
Yeah, like confirmation, just making sure like this is the right thing to do. Like they're just very doubtful. They're very anxious creatures. So their biggest desire is safety and guidance and security. That's really important to them. I think I explained that correctly. Yeah. Sixes, I got you. Okay, sevens, the best of all. Just kidding. I'm only saying that because I know that you think eights are every type thinks they're the best. I'm
especially totally sevens.
Especially sevens. No. We have our own shit. We have our own shit like everybody else. Sevens, like myself, it's the type of person that their biggest fear is missing out, being trapped in emotional pain. I've actually said this on quite a few episodes. Like that was my life in my 20s. It's just constantly moving from experience to experience to experience because I was chasing happiness and I wasn't allowing myself to experience any painful emotions, sadness, grief, frustration, anger. So I shoved it all down. And so that's very seven. And our biggest desire is just to be content and to have fun. Sevens are just like very playful and they're fun and they're just but it can come off pretty superficial because other people are like, there's no way you're this happy.
Yeah.
Which I totally get, but they actually do have quite depth. Moving on.
Eights are never that happy.
Eights are never that happy. They try.
they try, but they just want to kill somebody under the surface. Not saying I feel that way, but I do.
But I do feel that way. I have so many eights in my life, and I think it's because I have an 8 wing. Oh, see, that's just going beyond the basics, but eights are you will know who an 8 is. You there's no other type that has such a powerful presence. They're leaders. They're the type of people that are the protectors. They fight for justice, but they're angry. They're angry little guys. You're like massive. I'm calling you a little guy.
I'm an angry little guy.
You're an angry little guy. Their biggest fear is being perceived as weak, powerless, or being controlled. Like, do not try to control an 8. They will fight back and attack. Their biggest desire is to protect themselves and others. So if you think of an 8, they come off and they bark. We can go into communication styles for each too, but 8s are just like, that's how I see you guys. Big bears, just. But you guys are actually mushy on the inside. You are.
You
You're like,
say
yeah,
so.
shut up.
I think, but the thing is, it's definitely far under the surface, and it would be around the right types of people. Like it would be
True.
around, yeah, because you have to be around people that you wouldn't that aren't going to take advantage of you. I think that's
Or betray you.
Yeah, exactly. Like because everybody else has to stay on the other side of the armor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have so much armor. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's 8. 9, last one. Oh, 9s, little sweetie pies. They're so sweet. 9s are the type of people that they're mediators. They're people who do not like conflict. Like they love to keep the peace and harmony. You won't see them. Like it's funny because they're actually an anger type, like 8s, and they do have this tremendous like inner power and strength, and but they're not going to show it because they want to keep the peace. Like that's literally what they're all about. So their biggest fear is being in conflict, losing, or being separated from others, and their core desire is peace of mind. Very, very sweet people. I love them. I love them.
So I guess one question I have never really looked up the answer to, but I just kind of thought of it in the last few minutes was, can someone change their type? I know you said you wing types, and we'll dive into that briefly, but can someone change a type? Are you really, I mean, like obviously you can't change in astrology, you can't change what sign you are and stuff. Can someone change their type, or is it really more of like maybe they could have a different wing, but can they really change their core type? Because it's like the filter they came up with. Yeah. And I guess a no answer would be like the whole, no, you can't teach you can't teach old dogs new tricks. But I don't know. I feel like you can be aware of these things, but I don't know if you could change types, but is that possible?
No, that's a great question. No, you cannot. Because, like, if I read through all of that, like, I think we can all be like, I resonate with that. Mm-hmm. But you only have one type, one basic type, and that does not change throughout your entire life. But the cool part is that you have stress lines, you have growth lines. So, like, for example, as a 7, my growth path is to a type 5. I'll take on the traits and different strengths and abilities from type 5. And then my stress line is type 1. So when I'm stressed, I'll take on the traits of type 1. And then I have my wings. I have type 6 and type 8 next to 7. So I take on things from them as well. But the core wound and core fear does not change. It is always the same. But I will say, it's like, I've seen this with a lot of people that get into Enneagram because they feel so seen and they don't feel alone, and they like it because it is so deep. You feel understood. But the problem is that people are like, well, I'm a 3 and I'm an overachiever and this is how I am. Or I'm an 8, I get to talk this way because it says that is how I am and I'm not going to change. But that's the problem, is Enneagram is actually trying to show us the ways in which we built these filters to protect ourselves. But it's really just getting in our way as adults. When we're building our self-awareness and we're trying to grow, these types of patterns and behaviors are limiting us. And so we need to unravel them so we become the most healthiest version of ourselves.
When you and I were talking, just like the concept portion of this episode yesterday, there were certain points, and I didn't have, actually, no, I might have done some decent notes on that one. Just some of the different things that that the 8s can have that were a trait of mine, but that I felt like, yes, I identify that I've been that in the past. I can see where my flaws were from those actions, and I've worked pretty hard consciously to change those things. Like, that's what I feel is what the most beneficial portion of this is. Like I said, if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to admit, like, I'm not perfect, I have areas I can grow and change in, and that, yes, this non-negotiable portion of my personality type does have portions I can soften. I think that's the key of, like, you can't change types, but you can take this certain trait that some people might look at and be like, I'm damn proud of that. But okay, you might be proud of that, but is it really working in your best interest with your interactions with the world and the results that you hope to get out of every interaction that you have in life? Is that thing that you're standing on your mountain all proud about, is it really something that is benefiting your day-to-day interactions? And it's like, I can look at some of those things that number one, have softened up, and it's led to more success for me in the way that I've interacted with people. But number two, things I still need to work on to this day. Like I go to the end of my day and I try to do my best and be consistent with it, but I try to journal the different things that happen throughout my day. I try to journal my successes of the day, and I try to journal some of the moments where I have not done so well, just so I can recognize those and try to do better. And in a perfect day, when I'm not so stressed and busy, I will read that journal entry first thing in the morning when I wake up to remind myself of, what it was. It kind of like similar to like what I've done with what they say, the experts say you can do with dream journaling, is that the more you journal a dream in the middle of the night, if you wake up in the morning, you will remember it, and therefore you strengthen that part of your brain. And I feel like
That's cool.
Yeah, like I feel like we do the same kind of thing when we're recognizing day to day throughout our day, where was that flaw? And this kind of helps to, I think, highlight and put a spotlight on the areas during your day that you're probably going to fuck up on. Like people like me are probably going to be a little more intimidating than they probably should. And that can put people off. That can immediately shut down certain types of people where
100%.
Yeah, like if they're ones that are all about safety and security, it's like, this person is like not just a presence, like they're a looming presence. I'm going to shut down completely to everything this person's saying or doing. And therefore, here I am trying to do what I'm going to do. And I've shut the person down just because of a trait of mine that is coming across too strong. So I got to try and soften that up.
No, that's I love that you just said that, because that's so true. And since we're using the example of type 8, like 8s are pretty intimidating, I think, for mostly any type. Like if you don't know them, you're like, damn, like why are you yelling at me? Like why are you angry? And then
I'm not yelling.
Just be like, oh yeah, I'm not yelling, I'm just passionate. So yeah, I like I said, I'm surrounded by a lot of 8s, yourself included, and it's really cool to see a healthy 8, especially because they are leaders. And when I've seen you guys, I mean, you do it with me, like you lower your intensity, and I've seen that with other 8s too, and it's like very gentle and but also very empowering. So each type can also, you know what? It's just like sitting in the back of my head. I'm sorry, 3s. I feel like I didn't do you justice as well, but
go ahead, do them justice now.
Probably every type. Now I'm just thinking back. I'm like, ugh.
Jump into them. That's the beauty of this, is that, like I said, this is the intro level, and if people want to dive into it more, it would take like a discovery call with you and doing some stuff. Yeah, like Alexis is the one to do this. I have the privilege of being privy to inside information and sort of chatting it up with Alexis all the time on this kind of stuff. But you guys, if this seems like something, this is an interest, which I don't think I can highly suggest more, that will get you more into self-awareness. But look up the links we'll have in the show notes on this stuff, because it is an eye opener and a game changer for so much stuff trickles out of the changes that come from the awareness this gives you.
Thanks, Heath. That was really nice.
Talk about a 3 though. What did you glaze over?
I just want to like show that like 3s, like you guys, I'm like, you're the overachievers and you're setting goals. Like I think a lot of people do that, but like these guys, like they get shit done. They are also leaders. Every type is a leader. I don't want to just be like 8s are powerful and leader and have a strong presence. So do 3s.
Yep.
3s are like, a lot of entrepreneurs are 3s. And they're also like, they are so good with words of affirmation. Like if I want to be like lifted up for the work I've done, I'm going to a 3. Mm-hmm. So they can lift me up. Actually an 8, to be honest, but now I feel like I haven't done all the types justice. I love them all. They're all brilliant. Like I know every type. I have one in my life, and like 1s, for example, I'm making them out to seem like black and white and good and bad and justice. And, but 1s are so fun. Probably the most fun. Like when you go on vacation with a 1, you're going to have the best time because they let loose, because they're allowed to let loose.
No, but the thing is, that's valuable when you're considering all these different things. Every one of them sort of does have a little bit of a trait. I mean, the same thing kind of goes with astrology and stuff too, but so many different types have a little slice of it. It's just certain types happen to have more. Like if you had little weights that were tipping on a scale, it would just be like, the threes have the leadership quality, but they've got 3 chips on the scale versus the 8s that have 5. It just happens to be, it's a strength both have, just one happens to have a little bit more, but the 8s have less of something that maybe the 3s have. It's
Totally.
just, it's, and everybody has that. Like if you're trying to judge a fish's ability to climb a tree, like it's not going to work. And so many people do that in their lives. They'll look at a certain type and be like, why don't I have more of that? Not saying you can't develop it. It's just as a natural intrinsic sort of trait that's built into the way that your mind and modalities operate. This is your default programming. And if it's something that you're aware of and you want to work on it more, then you go ahead and you do that. You won't be able to change the core of it. But yeah, if you want to be a better leader, then you do certain things that will make you as good of a leader as maybe like an 8 will. Like what traits does an 8 have that makes them a better leader than another trait? Like it's all that self-awareness.
True. Exactly. And I would say like, the reason, like another reason I love Enneagram too, is because like you said earlier, yes, you're using it for your own self-awareness and growth, but this is so good to like develop healthy partnerships. Also in your workplace, knowing my boss, for my part-time job, she's an 8 and she talks like that. But she's not angry. She just talks that way. But like as a 7, I'm like, I'm just trying to have fun. But knowing that she talks like that, like you, it helps me like understand like, okay, she's not mad at me. There's no painful emotions going on. Like I feel safe.
That part makes me feel bad all the time though, because people are like, why were you so mad the other day? I'm like, when was I mad? Yeah, you're talking about this thing. I'm like, oh, I wasn't mad at all. What are you talking about? Like, oh my God, you seemed really pissed. I'm like, damn, well, you got to see me when I'm pissed.
I know.
But that's and that goes in lines with even some nationalities and stuff. Cause they always say Italians that we talk with our hands and we're always so loud and boisterous and stuff like that. No, like, yeah, that comes with some cultural conditioning as well. I mean, all of it's built on the filters. I mean, yeah. So, well, I'll use Italians because that's what I am. We have, the influence on, family members. That's the conditioning that you end up growing up with. So maybe a condition of Italians is it leans heavily toward the type 8, just as because it's just a classified sort of way that it goes, and you're around those types and it brings it up. You brought up that way, so it's your dominant way of being. And when other types that are a little bit more withdrawn, it's part of your cultural conditioning. It's the lenses that you develop in those early stages of life that get to this point. It's not so much nature, it's a lot of nurture. It's the way that you're brought up and the things that you experience. So yeah, I talked about nationalities, but if you be of a certain nationality and you don't grow up in a household that's that typecast, or say you were adopted and you went to a different household, like you might not have those traits because you might not be around them, or it could just be so deeply entrenched in your being that you still talk with your hands and you still yell when you're not angry. Like that's what we do. It's just part of what it is. But I'll say that learning about these things have also made me feel a little less unique in a good way. Like it's made me feel like, because I don't have a lot of people who are like me around me in my life. And I think that's a part of what happens. It's really good.
It's probably a good thing.
I was always terrified that I'd have a kid that was like me. And thank God Mason's nothing like me at all. He's so cool and he's calm and he's also a Virgo too. I don't know. I'd like to find out because he's a very early in a Virgo and I'm very late on it, but I guess I'm very typecast as a Virgo and he's got very few like sort of Virgo tendencies or whatever. He's such a chill kid and he's very much more happy-go-lucky than I am. But I was terrified that I was going to have a kid that was going to be like me for so many different reasons. Like teenage years, thank God he's nothing like I was.
An angry little guy.
just a hellion. Like I was not a fun teenager to be around. God bless my mom. But yeah, it made me feel a lot less alone in the sense that, yes, there are other people out there who talk, act, and think the way that I do in certain ways. And I think that's one of the, other than self-awareness, I think it's probably the next best thing is that, yes, there are other people out there that will get you. There's certain types that you can maybe identify as you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, 100%. I remember like I don't like road trips because I don't like being trapped. As a 7, like that, we will chew our own arm to get out of a situation if we feel trapped. Sitting in a car, highly anxious. Like I have to like really set intentions before I get in a long car ride. But other people would be like, dude, I'm actually okay on airplanes. But I think it's because 7s are all about travel. We're like, send me off to experiences of the unknown. Like, it's so fun for us. But people in the past would be like, dude, just chill the fuck out. Like, what? It's a car ride. It's 4 hours or it's an hour. It's going to be fine. And I would feel very like, oh, they don't understand. So knowing that there's other 7s out there that can understand that trapped feeling, feels great. I just met, you know what's funny though? I just met, I don't actually know many 7s. I think I know maybe 2. And I just met one of the 2. And I was kind of like, very, very, very sweet. But I was triggered a little bit because I like was seeing certain traits in her that I was like, ugh. Like I was like, oh my God, do I come off like that? Like the because people have asked, they're like, there's no way you're that happy. And I'm like, yes, I am. But it does come off pretty superficial. Like fake. But I promise that's not. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think from the moment I met you, I don't think I ever thought there was a fakeness to it, but I think there is just a level of like, man, how much do you sustain this on a daily basis? And it's like, yeah, even on the days where Alexis is like, I'm just not feeling it. Because I've always said to you since we started doing this show, like if there's a day where, and both of us have had them in the course of us setting dates that we're going to record, and just if one of us is feeling like dog shit, it's like, let's not record. Like for the sake of not putting, I'd rather put out something a couple days later and put it off than put out something that's subpar. And even on the days where you say you're not feeling that great, it's like, I don't see it. I'm not feeling good. You still get on a call with me or something like that, and you're still all smiles. And it's like, this is you on a bad day. Like you've seen me on my bad days, and I'm just like F.
Yeah, I think it's because I suppressed all of those emotions for so long that even if I'm sad or mad or whatever, like it's very dull.
Yeah.
It's not to like the heightened, which I guess in some ways is good, but in other ways, like I'm still working on it. I want a full year of just experiencing sadness. Now this year I'm experiencing anger, and it is very uncomfortable for me. I do not like it.
Now, is that part of 7s? Is that an opposite of what a 7's trait would be? Because we haven't dove into 7 much. So let's dive into yours. We talked a lot about mine, but like, what is a 7 all about? Why would anger be something that doesn't resonate? Is it anything that has to do with what a 7's type is?
Yeah, because 7s, we don't want to experience our core fears to be trapped in pain. And anger is one of those painful emotions for us. Sadness, grief. So now that like I'm a healthier 7 and I'm allowing myself to experience the full range of emotions, to me, like I'm going to call it the universe. I feel like the universe is putting me in situations that develop those emotions. And for anger is coming up a lot this year for me. And oh man, like I do not like it at all. I've actually had conversations with 8s because you guys are so comfortable with anger, and I'm learning a lot about it. And it's very interesting, but yeah, it feels like I'll fucking lose control if I let myself fully experience anger. And I don't want to hurt anybody. I think that's like another thing for me with anger. I'm basic, dude. Like I'm still learning about anger. I'm like a child with emotion. I'm telling you. I'm good at helping other people through it, but for me, it's just like it's a process, which is kind of odd, right?
It's not so odd though. Like it just, I guess you just don't turn inwards. You don't look in the mirror enough when it comes to like the range of the emotions that you end up feeling. And once you finally do look in the mirror and you're aware of this kind of stuff, and it helps, it basically is your mirror. Like you look at this and you're able to look in the mirror and see a different reflection of yourself. And, and looking at it and kind of discussing in some of the notes that I wrote down and some of the stuff I wanted to mention, it was like, yeah, the 8s feel a lot of anger. And it's like, people think about that and they're like, wow, such an angry person must be violent. No, absolutely not. Actually, like I am far from violence. Like, and I think I've had violence in my life. I've seen it. I was trained to be really good at it at a certain time between the job and also like boxing was just like the way that I was trained it was kind of sick from the age of 15 onward. It was like, yeah, you don't fight to just like fight. Like you want to make sure that the person can't walk out of the ring at the end. It was like a really kind of a brutal way to teach like a kid something, and it just carried into life. It was like the anger helped in those situations, but it was always able to keep a cork in it. But I can think of the emotions, like the core emotions throughout most of my life. It's like, yeah, it's anger. A lot of it's anger, which then does that then cut off other emotions? Like what? So anger is when you have a hard time with what is your top one? What is the emotion that gets expressed the most in a sevens type?
Probably excitement.
Okay.
I get excited a lot about things.
Yeah.
Simple things. Like I will say, like, that's the beauty about sevens too. And what sevens can bring into the world is a lot of joy. I think a lot of people want to be around sevens because they want to feel happy. And we express that a lot and I don't think it's fake, although an unhealthy seven is like not allowing any of the painful emotions. So the happiness is superficial in a way. But a healthy seven, I feel like most of the time I'm pretty content. Like, even if I allow in like the other emotions and let it flow, like for the most part, I'm pretty happy, but I can walk outside. I can see like the sunlight hit a leaf and be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Like everything's just like magical. And so, yeah, I feel a lot of excitement but I guess these days, just peace, contentment. Yeah. Which is cool. But yeah, going back to the anger thing, because we all express anger so differently. This is something, since it is something I'm learning. In my own relationship, Chase, he's a 5. And 5s, how they deal with emotions is it's really difficult for them to process it in the present moment. Because they're a head type. They're in their heads all the time. Like they're not emotional. Like they don't really allow themselves that. Even though they have that richness within them, they're not going to express it. And so
it's just an echo chamber in there. Like it's in there bouncing around, but it doesn't come out.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? I don't know what this is. So in the past, because we've been together for almost 11 years, we would just go in circles in our arguments. And I'd be like, what the fuck is happening? Like so sevens were very solution oriented. We're like, let's get to the point. Like, what's the root? What's why are we both upset? How are we going to move forward? Like, but in a way that's also unhealthy because it's like people need to express their feelings. Like I got to let that happen. So I'm working on that as well. But 5s, like in the moment, I've learned now to give them time to be able to process their emotions because they're actually highly intelligent. And probably one of the most observant types. And so if I give Chase time to process his emotions, he'll come back full circle and be like, okay, I understand how I feel. I understand what you're saying. And now we can come to agreement. But if I allow him to just keep going and going and going, we'll go in circles for hours. And then I know with myself as a 7, if things get too heightened and anger starts getting more increased, my first instinct is to be like, I don't need to be in this relationship anymore. I'm done. Bye. I did that so many times. I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, Chase. I love you. So it's really nice understanding the motivation behind why I did that. It wasn't that I actually wanted to leave the relationship. It was more of, I don't want to experience any more of this heightened, painful emotion. It feels like I'm being trapped. So in arguments with your partner, it's so cool knowing their type and understanding why are they talking that way? Why are they communicating? Like, why? It helps you understand the other person in a deeper way.
Absolutely.
So you can resolve. And then you have empathy for the other person because okay, I know, for example, I'm trying to come up with I know that I'm in an argument with you and you are coming off very angry. But the biggest thing of why you're coming off that way is it's a defense mechanism. You're trying to protect yourself, right? If I know that, then I can have empathy on the other side in that argument and be like, okay, this is not about me. This is because they're trying to protect themselves, and that's why they're barking at me right now. That's just another example, Right. I could go on and on. Am I getting annoying?
No, this fascinating stuff.
Okay, good.
one of the other parts that I wanted to mention, are there certain types that are more compatible with others? You know, especially when it comes to relationships, like, is a 5 compatible with a 7? Or, you know, is there certain types that are more compatible with certain types?
I think if we had a certified Enneagram coach on here, they'd be able to tell you that. I don't know the answer, but what I can from my own experience is I find it interesting that a lot of different people seem to either be with, like, I think it'd be very difficult for a 7 and a 4 to date. Because 7s, they're like, I don't want to deal with painful emotions. And 4s have this depth of emotional, they just feel so much. And so I think that would be a hard pairing. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that has that couple, but I think that we go for people that, can get us. Like, for me, dating Chase as a 5, that's my growth path, which I find interesting. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I don't really know the answer to that. I think that maybe we attract exactly what we need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, there's been so many different times that I can think of that things had gotten rough, and you know, the different periods of growth. I think that's what's made me and my wife so successful over the years. Like, people would look at us and be like, oh, you know, you guys have been together. Like, we knew each other in high school. We first met in like 7th grade, and I had a crush on her in like 8th grade, and then again in like 11th grade. And it took after we were high school to actually get together, and it's been ever since. Like, it's been 22 years now, but it hasn't been without its hiccups. People will look at us and it's like, well, we don't talk about what goes on behind closed doors and the problems that we've had to a huge extent. Like, we've definitely brought it forward and tried to basically inspire people. Like, don't try to sit there and be perfect in your relationships. It's not going to happen. There's some people, messy. Yeah, like, there are some people, I'm sure, who are literally like the absolute perfect match, and they hardly ever have an issue, and things are just going great. Like, God bless them. Great. You've had a great life. Our growth path in the parallel that we've gone to together, there'll be times where I'm the ass that needs to come to grips with something, and it's a huge growth period for me when I realize I'm in the wrong and she calls it out, and vice versa. And luckily, we've been able to grow together throughout it all, because some couples will just genuinely grow apart. That might be your path. You know, you're with a certain person long enough that you've been with them long enough. The period of growth that you've had is over. The universe starts to separate because you are meant to go learn something else somewhere else with someone else. Like, that's an unfortunate thing that happens. And people who are self-conscious about being divorced or having, you know, failed marriages or relationships or whatever, it's like, that's kind of what the universe needed for you, obviously, because that's what happens. Like, you have to look at every circumstance that works out as a divine circumstance. Like, it was meant to happen that way because it happened that way. Like, you look back on it. The people who were able to stay together and grow and were able to sort of go on parallel tracks with each other, you were fortunate enough that the Heath that grew was compatible with the Sylvia that grew. Like, you were able to continue going on. And the same thing with you, 11 years in, and you guys are able to continue to have ups and downs, but throughout it all, it's like the end result is still compatibility, because one or both people grew throughout whatever it was that, you know, didn't work out in whatever moment, but you're able to learn, grow, and you're still there. There's still something to keep you rooted there because it all mattered. And that's the path that you're supposed to be on. And I think learning everything about these different types, it's like, it would help me learn more about what my wife was like, to the things that I'm going to do that are her biggest triggers, and try and soften them up. I already do. Like, I just the feedback that I get, you know, like, I'm a 230 something pound guy. She's like 100 pounds. She's tiny. Like, I have to be careful how big and intense I can get. Like, it would definitely be someone literally twice my size was looming over me, all intense and fired up over an argument. It would be like, wow, okay, you know, like, that would be kind of an intimidating circumstance. So, like, that I've learned from, but also the triggers that come from learning the different types. Like, those are things that you'd be able to learn from as well, to, you know, soften the blow in whatever situations you're in, whether it's relationships or work.
1000%. Like, I think of 6s, for example, and then, like, you know, their worry, and a lot of times us other types will be like, stop worrying about it. Like, that could be like the worst thing that you say to a 6.
Stop worrying about it.
Stop worrying about
being
it.
so angry. Stop worrying about it. Stop this. Stop that.
Oh my gosh. The worst thing that you could say to a 7 or one of them is like, cheer up. Cheer. I'm like, motherfucker, I can cheer up. It makes me so angry. Oh my gosh. Or like, look at the bright side. I'm like, oh, I've looked at the bright side.
I am the bright side.
I am the bright side. Gosh. I don't feel like I did 9's justice either.
I think you've done a good job. I think just because you have so much knowledge in it, like it's hard for you to summarize because you're so passionate about this and you know so much about it. Like I said, you could stop on every one of these types for a half an hour to dish everything about what you know and how that relates to people you've met along the way. So yeah, I wouldn't be too self-conscious about that. But is there something, what else about a 9 you want to throw in there?
Well, I just want to say, like, about 9s of, like, I was like, they don't like conflict and they want to keep the peace and harmony, but, like, they're also just, like, so complex, and, like, once you get to know them, there's, like, layers upon layers, and, like, there's this, like, inner power about them. Like, they're not just, like, all calm and docile. Like, there's just, like, such power behind them, and they also can see multiple perspectives, and they can remain calm and adaptable. I would say they are the least, what's the word for it? Undistorted type. Out of all of them. Like, they can see what's actually happening.
That's fair. That's fair.
There's truth there.
Yeah. I think this conversation's great though, and we'll wrap up in a minute, but the conversation's great because it definitely sets the stage. And I know you've got a couple people who are like super experts, you know, beyond even your expertise, but totally. People that are extreme experts on this and can rattle off everything about everybody. And when we get to the point where we're going to have that person on, I'd like to do it sort of on the heels of this in the next maybe 4 to 5 episodes. So we'll talk further about how to make that happen. But once we do it, I want to put that episode, we'll advertise it ahead of time, and we'll put it on either the Wisdom app or Clubhouse. I lean a little bit more towards Wisdom because I've used it, and I don't know, I'm salty towards Clubhouse a little bit lately, but either way, I'd like to get it a live version of this so that as we have Alexis questions and whichever expert we have, we can have you, the listeners, listen to when we're going to we'll set a time and date when we're going to have that episode and record it. And you can download the Wisdom app and you can get right on there, and we'll take people up on, stage, quote unquote. We'll take them up on stage one at a time. And if you fill out the stuff ahead of time, we'll dive a little bit more into, the setup to that, but we'll have people take the test and we'll have your information a little bit ahead of time. And then we'll be able to sort of look into a little bit more, or at least if you know what type you are. And then if you have questions or want to dive a little bit more into it, we'll have you up on stage with these 2 experts. So it'll be kind of like a little bit of a free coaching session with a couple people who know what they're talking about. So I think that would be fun. It would be a little bit of a logistical challenge, but that's what this is all about. That'll set our growth edge for us as podcasters.
I'm really excited for that. And
yeah,
I'm hoping I can get this specific person on, but we'll see how that goes. We'll get somebody. We'll get somebody really cool. Really cool.
Cooler than you?
No. Just kidding. Probably cooler. I'm not that cool.
No. You can be.
I mean, I feel like we went over a lot.
We did. And it was great. So we'll wrap it up. And like I said, if you guys are interested in this beyond the level of what we've been able to do today, go take the test. We'll put the link in the show notes and all the other pieces of information that are valuable to this subject. And like I said, we're going to dive back into this. This was just the intro level, and we'll talk about this again later, but dive into the show notes, take that exam, know what type you are, so that later on when we're diving into this a little bit deeper with someone, you're aware of it. And have people that are nearby, near and dear to you, take the test as well, so you can kind of learn what they're about in the process, and who knows how that's going to benefit you. But also, a question and answer at the bottom of this episode in the show notes will be there. If you click on that link, it's going to have something relative to, what sort of type were you and what you learn about yourself. But go down in the show notes and answer that question and answer whenever that does come out. And also down in the show notes, there is ways to support this podcast that are down there now. You can do it through both Patreon and through Spotify. So if you do want to throw us some love, that will help us get this out in front of more ears and minds of the populace that's out there, and separate us from the sea of 3 million podcasts out there. there are ways that you can support the show, and that will just basically get turned right back into the show and help us get out there even more, because all it pretty much goes into advertising and whatever can help put us out there. So there's my plug. Alexis, thank you for all of your expertise and bringing this passion of yours to the listeners and myself, because I've learned a lot.
Thanks, man. I was like stoked to have this conversation about Enneagram. And before we go, just one last apology. If I didn't do your type well enough, or I didn't give you enough praise, I apologize. I love you all. I'm sorry.
We went over the ones we're most knowledgeable about, which is pretty much you, me, and the people who'd be closest to us. So I don't think anybody's judging. I think you're judging yourself, which is probably part of your type, isn't it? That's so 7 of you.
Yeah. It's my stress line to 1. I'm just, that inner critic comes up and I'm like, I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, this was fun.
It was.
See you next time.
All right, see you next time.
If this conversation has piqued your interest and you want to dive into your own Enneagram archetype, reach out to Alexis directly. Her contact info will be down in the show notes. I highly recommend it. She has definitely opened me up to a world about this subject matter, and it is fascinating. And currently for the fall of 2023, I have some openings for those looking to have one-on-one calls with me. Head to livethislife.org and go to the one-on-one consulting page for more information. And if you are an expert on inspiration, have amazing revelations about our reality, or have a story to tell about how you manifested your best life, we want to hear from you. You can reach out to us at connect@livethislife.org. That's CONNECT@livethislife.org. Or you can schedule a time to talk with me directly about an episode concept through the show's Calendly page at calendly.com/livethislife. And be sure to follow along on all the socials and give this video a like, a comment, or a review. And please feel free to forward this show to those who you think would resonate with its message. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.